Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Building a Smart Network Through Software-Defined Automation. Today we have with us Darren Giacomo. I knew I was going to mess this up. Darren Giacomoni from BCDVideo and Bill Lawrence from Alcatel-Lucent Enterprises. Darren is the Director of Advanced Systems Architecture at BCDVideo and has over 16 years of networking experience. Darren holds several certifications and also contributes monthly to Security World as a columnist to share his insights and knowledge on physical security networks and what it takes to deliver the most capable video surveillance network infrastructure. Bill Lawrence is a 25-year veteran of the networking industry and is an expert in the field of network video surveillance and physical security convergence. He has extensive experience with a broad range of solutions for video surveillance networking and previously led the video and network solutions team at Tyco. Bill currently leads business development for Alcatel-Lucent Enterprises Video Surveillance Network segment. In today's webinar from BCDVideo's Director of Advanced Systems Architecture and Alcatel-Lucent Enterprises Development Director of Video Surveillance and IoT, attendees will discover how software-defined automation helps build smart networks. You will be able to understand common network-related issues within physical security and how to leverage smart network topologies can increase development efforts and allow them to scale available resources. My name is Julie Rolls, and I am the training manager at PSA. I will be moderating today's call. I have just a few quick housekeeping items before I hand it over to Darren and Bill. First, if you've not already done so, please mute yourself. If you happen to have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, please type them into the chat panel, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. I will also be monitoring the chat should you run into any technical difficulties, and I will do my best to get you back up and running. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Darren and Bill. Gentlemen.
Julie, thank you for the introduction. Today we're going to talk to you about software-defined automation that's built specifically for the physical security market. And I always like to start off by talking about what is software-defined automation as we define it today, and where is the technology heading? As it stands today, software-defined automation directly correlates to automating the deployment of the network infrastructure. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to do that. We'll get a little bit deeper into that as we move forward. But primarily, it's removing the possibilities that you introduce misconfigurations or errors that literally lead to downtime and more outages or problems associated with your deployment. So with respect to software-defined automation, that's what we're talking about today. We're also going to talk a little bit about software-defined networking, which is a common term that's thrown out in the networking industry. And throughout my background in working with Avaya and working with other companies, it's applicable to a lot of things in the medical field. For instance, when we would see hospitals, we see a lot of problems where the IT department was spending a lot of time telling people to plug into the appropriate ports, whether it be for Epic or whether it be for whatever application it was. There are ways that you can use software-defined networking to actually drive the supporting role of the port directly into it with zero touch. In the physical security world, that actually applies itself in the perspective of being able to bring new entities or new defined devices online. So at 3 in the morning, a transportation representative that needs to bring on a new camera or bring on a new archiver but doesn't have a network engineer available can simply plug into any port, and the network's smart enough to actually procure the resources themselves. So I'll dive in a little bit deeper as we go in with some of the stuff that we're doing with Alcatel-Lucent, such as universal network profiling. And that's going to allow us to drive some of the technology in and actually define those feature sets for the physical security market. I'd like to do a quick introduction. My name is Darren Giacomoni. I'm the Director of Advanced Systems Architecture at BCD. I was the lead network architect for Pelco for 9.5 years, ran their professional services department, testing department, and also ran the support of network services. After that, I did about 4.5 years leading the charge with Bill at Avaya for the same technology that Alcatel-Lucent uses. And now I run the Advanced Systems Architecture Group at BCD, where we develop and test next generation products to bring to the market. So Bill, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks, guys, for attending. Bill Lawrence. As Darren said, I had an opportunity to run Tyco's video solutions and networking solutions several years ago, and I think what you'll find out through this presentation is something that I became keenly aware of in that role at Tyco, was that deploying networks sounds simple. Plug things in and things should work, but in reality they don't. What we've been able to do is develop with BCD some technologies and solutions that greatly simplify, take the risk and complexity out of what could be a very daunting and complex environment. So I think you'll find this extraordinarily helpful and interesting, and take it away, Darren.
Thank you, Bill. So the first question I get when we talk about the BCD provisioning assistance, people often ask, how long has the technology been in development? How long has the development process been, and what kind of effort has been put into it? The idea originally started when I was with Avaya, and some of you that I see on the call have actually used the technology that I built into the Avaya switches for automated scripting that would take traditional deployments where you have control of the IP space and automate the deployment through scripts that were built directly into the switching technology. And while that was very successful, it wasn't quite as flexible or robust as I actually would want it to be. So the development process continuing through Alcatel-Lucent has been going on for about 7 or 8 years in a direct partnership now for the last 2.5 years with Alcatel-Lucent. And we're working to provide a web-based interface, or a smartphone or tablet-based interface to allow you to drive provisioning directly into the network switches without the need to have to actually interact with it or go through command line console. In conjunction with that, we're working on developing a partner community that allows the integrators to provide feedback. It's very important to both Alcatel-Lucent and myself as we move forward that we get feedback from people who are out in the field as to what feature sets they think would be useful. So as we move forward with this product and we develop feature sets, we make sure we're on target in developing a product that's in direct line with what is not only needed, but used frequently within the field. So what are the key benefits of the Provision Assistant app? From a technological perspective, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. But from a business perspective, that's kind of more what I'm interested in talking about. When I talk to integrators and I go from location to location, I talk about what are the challenges for the executives. One of the number one things is, how do I scale my networking resources? I've got one networking guy that doesn't scale to 25 products or 25 projects that I'm working on. So how do I scale that out? The easiest way to do that is simplify the network infrastructure and simplify the technology to where it's obtainable by more people as opposed to relying on a single resource. And we've done this with a couple of integrators where we've been able to pull their staff in a matter of 45 minutes to an hour, get them to a point where they can deploy an infrastructure network just like an architect or a systems engineer would, 100% automated through this deployment app. All of these feature sets are deployed and validated and optimized for physical security networks. So everything that we put into this technology is not only the correct configuration, but has been validated both by BCD and in the Alcatel-Lucent labs to scale out with different VMS platforms and different cameras and different bit rates. So we ensure that you are successful in your ventures. The reduced margins of error come in based upon the template technology. If the deployment of the network switch is automated, the chances of human interaction or human error are significantly depleted. When you don't make errors, the next bullet item there, where you're eliminating truck rolls, becomes a side effect as to what you're getting from that. If you can deploy a network properly, 100% with any of your technicians the first time, you eliminate the need to roll trucks site to site, dealing with network-related issues that become very, very difficult to troubleshoot and very, very difficult to isolate and actually fix. And last but not least, simplified and expedited recovery times. This one is one of my favorites. I have a partner that I work with today in Louisiana, and while I'm talking about the simplified layer 2 deployments, this goes all the way up to layer 3 multicast routed high availability networks. And this particular owner of this company has now been able to not only deploy a high availability network for a casino, but also put them in a position where they can use the application to recover themselves in the event they have a network switch failure or they have an outage. It's a very, very powerful thing to put in a customer's hands. So what are the common things that people complain about? When I was at Avaya, both Bill and I were there when we funded this research through ZH Research, which is an independent research firm that basically wanted to find out what are the common problems in networking and how are they solved. Well, it comes down to the same thing. Everybody's complaining about the same problems: artifacting, degraded video, pixelization, latent PTZ control, slow camera population times, live and archived video outages, systems management or archive or database failures, or just general system failures where they simply cease to operate or work properly. The most important one of those to me is slow camera population time. And more often than not, people say, why does slow camera population time become imperative for a surveillance environment? Well, my wife and both of my young sons currently go to the school where she teaches, and they had an active shooter environment that came online. And all I could think about at the time is how responsive is that system? How quickly can they pull that video up to assess what's going on? I've been to plenty of sites where the latency in the video population and the overall operation simply is just not sustainable. When you see these types of problems, the findings of this research came back and said, if you cannot resolve this in a 2-week time frame, over 75% of the time, it's infrastructure related. The network isn't set up properly, or there are underlying issues that are causing these problems. And these are a breakdown of what people typically complain about with respects to that. So what I want to do is give you a quick run through. I'm not in today's presentation going to go through layer 3 multicast routed and super what I call HA or high availability infrastructure. We're going to focus on the layer 2 flat network side of the market and how we can leverage this app to actually deploy that. For a simple network here, you're going to see that we have management servers, we have view stations, we have cameras, and we have switches. This is all things that everybody on this call are commonly and frequently used to. You can deploy this layer 2 some resiliency. As you see on the right, you can interconnect the switches with this app and actually provide redundant paths. It's not going to be fast in its recovery with respects to some other technology, but you can provide the resiliency. But more importantly, feature sets that are built directly into this app. DHCP deployment that has infinite lease time, meaning that you can use DHCP as opposed to statically defining the IP address structure for your cameras, saving you hours of time in these installations. Automatic enablement and optimization of PoE, enablement of multicast services or IP multicast services, appropriate system time being set, and layer 2 port security are all inherently built into this technology or this feature set with the app. The switches themselves that leverage the layer 2 platform are based on the Alcatel-Lucent 6350 series platform that we have anywhere from a 10-port, 24-port, and a 48-port switch. And I think it's important to know that while the price point that comes to the market is very attractive and seems entry level, these are actually a second-tier switch from Alcatel-Lucent that we're able to provide to the market at a very, very economical price, which both expands the feature set and allows us to use this application to drive better functionality into the networks that you deploy on a daily basis. So here's an overview of the app. If you take a look, the app is available on download on Google Play. And the next question that everybody automatically asks is, when is this available for my Apple phone? We have a targeted release date of the beginning of the 3rd quarter of this year that it'll be available for Apple. Today, if you don't have an Apple phone, you can use a tablet, and BCDVideo actually has tablets available that have these pre-configured for you to utilize. Once you launch the Assistant, the package comes with a cable that connects to your smartphone and connects directly into the console port on the switch. So on the left-hand side, you can see that the connection has not been made yet. When you make the connection, you're going to be prompted to allow USB access to the device. Once you select OK, you can see that certain key things are going to come up. You'll find out the serial number, the MAC address of the actual device. You'll also see the current version of the operating system that's loaded, And all of those, from a support perspective, are critical because you can now use this application to derive that information by plugging in, which is the first thing support representatives are going to ask you for. What's the serial number? What's the MAC address? What's the version loaded? Once you make the connection, you have a simple drop-down dialog box that will allow you to choose from a number of configurations. If you choose the core switch option, that builds your DHCP scope for your cameras automatically into that switch. You can then configure any number of switches. This particular template shows 9. There are actually more available, up to 20 now that are available for utilization. And each one is assigned its own unique IP address. And you can literally interconnect these however you want once the templates have been applied, and it's completely optimized for video surveillance. So here we see that the template's been selected and applied. In the second pane, it goes to the application process. The application will actually let you know once you've applied that configuration successfully, and then you have some features that can be used to actually verify that. The snapshot configuration is shown here. And the snapshot configuration actually will let you view in real time what the configuration parameters of that switch are that you've deployed. You can also have access to the log system, go back to your home, or access help features directly from this menu. So that's kind of the basics of pushing out this templated infrastructure. But what about security? Today, when I talk to physical security integrators, a lot of them are not broaching the topic of cybersecurity, either through it's not a particular area they're familiar with, or it's simply not something they're terribly comfortable with. We are building cybersecurity features directly into this application that will allow you to enable them from a single slide bar. Once you have deployed all of your cameras, all of your devices, and they're all connected, you can simply slide secure, which will actually implement cybersecurity feature sets directly onto it, such as port lockdown by IP and MAC, enable you to implement passwords, dynamic ARP inspection, DHCP snooping, IP source filtering, limiting it to SSH access, secure SNMP, and in the future, we're going to look towards an SDN approach using universal network profiling to define cameras. Now that is kind of an important point to talk about because today, while we're talking about the basics of deploying these switches, in conjunction with Alcatel-Lucent, we're looking at deploying what we call universal network profiling. Now, why that's important to everybody on the call is the networks become dynamic at that point. You'll be able to take a camera from any vendor that's been traffic profiled that will plug into your network. The technology will look at the traffic stream or will look at the packets coming from the camera to make sure and identify that it matches the profile of traffic that would come from that camera. It will then verify the IP and MAC address to make sure it's the correct source and the correct MAC address, and then dynamically associate the resources we want for that camera. It'll assign the VLAN. It'll assign whether you want multicast. It'll assign the feature set to it. Those are all things we're working with Alcatel-Lucent to drive dynamic representation into the network. So at 3 in the morning, if somebody who works for, some transportation entity or a casino or a hospital needs to bring up a new camera, they can plug into any network port and it doesn't matter. No interaction with the network engineer and no configuration changes necessary. The network will be capable of handling that itself. That inherently builds additional security features into it. This next slide shows the layout of how you can, in the newer or latest version of this, actually change the administrative password the first time that you log into the switch, or you can select to use the default, which you should never do. Last but not least, we are building troubleshooting into this application to assist you on your daily basis on the sites that you deal with of common problems that are encountered. We talk about what goes wrong in video surveillance. We're driving feature sets into this application to help you identify them and resolve them quickly. So in this slide, you can see we provide system health directly from the application. In one snapshot, by plugging into the switch, you can look at the overall system health. You can see what's the uptime. You can see the date, the time that's set, what time zone it's in. You can see what your CPU and memory resources are for different snapshots, both current 1 hour, and 1 day, what the average has been. And everybody knows the industry rule is if you're over 85%, you're in trouble. Right from the application, you can look at the total budget, total consumed, and total available PoE wattage. You can see if there's any crash files associated with it. So you can check a basic snapshot of your overall system health and what the overall parameter of health is for that particular network switch. And you do that by a switch-by-switch basis, leveraging the same application you use to deploy it. In addition, we're including port health. Now, this is one of my favorite technologies that we're building into this application. More often than not, when you cannot resolve an issue, particularly you have a camera plugged in, or you have a recorder plugged in, or you have a device plugged in, and maybe it's negotiating to the wrong speed in duplex. It's supposed to be a gig, but it's coming up 10/100. You're getting degraded video, pixeling, tearing, poor, representation of the video or degraded video. The first thing I'm going to look at is the port health. I'm going to find the port on that network switch and select it. From this application, you'll see the link speed. You'll see whether it's full duplex or bidirectional, and whether the state of the port is currently enabled. You can see the uptime, and more importantly, you can see how many times has that status changed or transitioned. How many times has that port gone offline since the switch has been rebooted? And I see this a lot at sites where they have link flapping or ports going offline and online, and that number can immediately tell you that you may have some physical infrastructure or cabling issue that you need to deal with. The utilization portion down here is my favorite feature set. And I have a casino in Louisiana I just recently dealt with this same command. For 3 months, they were dealing with degraded video on their VMS platform. Same things we talk about. Videos tearing, both on recording and live view. And for 3 months, both through the VMS vendor, through the camera vendor, and through their integrator, they're unable to figure out where the problem was. By utilizing this utilization command on a per port basis, you can get an overall throughput of what you're currently utilizing on the resources. So while this shows CPU and memory here, you can also pull up port utilization, inbound and outbound, of the resources associated with that network port. What percentage am I using? If you're using over 85%, you are going to start degrading the quality of the video or tearing the video. So in this particular instance for this casino, they found one uplink that was saturated at 98% on the 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day. It turns out during deployment, somebody accidentally grabbed a 1 gig network or 1 gig SFP as opposed to a 10 gig. And after 3 months of troubleshooting, we could quickly resolve that issue by simply replacing the physical component. Sometimes it comes down to actual cabling that you have to troubleshoot. And the last option here for the TDR stats, built into these Alcatel-Lucent switches are time domain reflectometry that allow you to look at the individual pairs that are on the cable. What is the length? Is there crosstalk, or are there problems? So without having to go beyond the switch itself, you can generate a port and see, do I have a physical cabling issue that's driving the root problem that's being manifested in my VMS? All of these are being built into this product to really help drive resolution quicker for both you and your customers. I'm now going to turn it over to Bill Lawrence, who will do a quick overview of Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise in general.
Hey guys, thanks again. Hopefully you found that discussion about the provisioning app and the networking solutions beneficial. I can tell you just from personal experience that the number of times that engineers have had to go out and try to figure out what's wrong with the video system, and 75% of the time it's a network issue. Tools like this can really simplify things. So I realize that a lot of you may not be familiar with Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, or ALE as we call ourselves. It's probably not the household networking name that you think about like Cisco or HP, but I'm proud to say that we've been in business for 100 years as of 2019. Dating way back into 1919 when there really wasn't any networking. And over the years, we've continued to build on the technology, and now we stand as Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, focused on enterprise solutions. So Darren, on the next slide, a real quick snapshot of kind of who we are today. If you can advance that, because I don't think I can. There we go. So we are headquartered in the U.S. in Calabasas. We have a total of, and our corporate headquarters is in near Paris, France. We have 830,000 customers and a lot of resellers. And in our traditional IT space, we focus on a couple of new markets. But what's really exciting for me personally in this role is that video surveillance cuts across everything. And so our video surveillance solutions that are developed in conjunction with BCD are applicable to any of your customers in any vertical market that you are supporting. We're making a tremendous investment in video surveillance, and we're really happy to be partnered globally with BCD as our go-to-market partner for video surveillance. And so, as you know, Darren has explained, we've developed some things within the switch and within the app that make this product, our switching portfolio, very suitable for, probably superior for video surveillance amongst any of the other switching technologies that I've seen. So that's kind of it. Just want to be sensitive to your time and turn it over to Darren.
No. Okay. No, because I'm on a webinar right now. So just tell them that I'll be free after.
So at that point, we'd like to open it up for any questions that anyone may have. There's at some point we've got some degraded audio coming through on my side, so if I cannot hear it, I apologize. But we'd like to open it up for any questions that anyone may have at this point.
I did have a couple of questions that came through. The first one was, does this network solution work with any VMS and camera system?
Absolutely. It's completely agnostic to any VMS or camera platform that's out there. It's not dependent on any particular camera, any particular VMS. And more importantly, we're talking about the layer 2 deployments today, which is kind of the simple deployments, the run rate type of deployments that we all do. If any of you are interested in a little bit further of a deep dive, please feel free to reach out to me. There are full SPB fabric-based deployments for high availability that can support tens of thousands of cameras and recover sub-second for any VMS platform out there as well. And this same automated technology from this same app can be used to deploy this.
Great. What are some of the specific issues that can be caused by a bad network?
Well, a lot of the things that were listed in there in the breakdown that we had from the ZH research, more often than not, when I'm troubleshooting a network or figuring out why we're having problems, it comes down to degraded video. And that degraded video always comes down to resource depletion. And it's identifying where that resource depletion is. If a camera and its CPU itself goes above 85%, you are going to have degraded video. If the uplink coming out of the camera to the first tier switch has problems, you're going to have degraded video. If that switch is elevated in its CPU above 85%, once again, you're going to have video problems. And you can drive back to the network all the way down to your workstation and the decoding capabilities. If you're decoding and your CPU or your GPU is going to have 80%, you'll manifest the same problems. So one other thing at BCD we really take pride in is making sure we deliver the right solutions all the way from the servers to the workstations to the network to make sure you have a fully optimized solution that meets your customers' expectations.
Wonderful. The provisioning app seems like a really great time saver. How much does that cost?
The provision app is completely free. And I will tell you this, that in a test when I used the provisioning app to see how quickly I could deploy 26 switches in a layer 3 environment with redundancy. Now all the cabling was there, but the actual programming time for 26 switches took me roughly 23 minutes from inception to delivering video across a high availability multicast driven network. So there is a lot of time to be saved, but it's important not to underestimate. The time saving aspect is really important, but all of us have been in those project black holes where you get into a particular site and you can't get out of it. You're just sending person after person after person to try to resolve it. And when you use software-defined automation and there's no human interaction on the program of the switches, you have zero margin for error. And when there's no errors in the actual implementation, you don't have those type of problems.
That was very informative. Thanks. I think one more question was, I have networks that range from very simple to very complex. And does that app work with all ALE switches and network configurations?
Today, the layer 2 implementation works with the 6300 series platform. It works selectively with the 6400 series because the 6400 series has a very cost-effective 24-port 1 gig SFP switch. So it does work with that. At the layer 3 advanced level, it works with the 6800 series and the 6900 series platform. But one of the things I absolutely love about Alcatel-Lucent and the relationship we have with them is if I have a customer need and I have a demand-driven need to bring in the 6500 series or bring in another platform to this automation application, this is something that can be turned around in literally in a number of days usually.
Fantastic. Darren, do you happen to have a slide with some contact information that if people have questions, where can they go?
I do. So
Perfect.
Here's our basic contact information for our LinkedIn for BCDVideo. You'll find myself under there in the LinkedIn for Alcatel-Lucent, as well as the Twitter accounts for both. And if anybody would like to get my contact information directly, you can certainly reach out to BCD and that can be provided. We'd love to not only engage with you on this, but I really want to look at getting feedback. One of the most important things to me as we develop this app is making sure we hit the target market of what you need in the field to solve your problems. And not necessarily technical problems. How do we solve your business problems with this app? And so feedback from the community is absolutely critical to hitting that goal.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, because that looks like all of the questions that we had today. If anyone would like to review this presentation again or pass it along, we will have a recorded version of it posted very soon, and you can find it by visiting psaeducation.com. Thank you very much to Darren Giacomoni and Bill Lawrence. As Darren
Thank you guys
mentioned,
for your time today, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to attend our webinar.
yeah, their contact information is here. Yes.
Yeah, these switches, besides the app, that it has, are they available to, you could get them through the cloud? There's some switches out there that have cloud capability to get into, and you could do settings. You could go directly to the cloud to that switch.
Sure. And they have that with Alcatel-Lucent as well, and those are options we can provide. We have a client, I can't tell you which client, but it's a very big client of ours that is literally using OmniVista Cirrus to manage all of that stuff through the cloud. So all that's available. It's not something we're going to build into an automated provisioning assistance, but that technology is definitely available.
Okay, if we had any other questions, can we please keep them in the chat? I need to cut off today's webinar. We've run over time, but thank you again to Darren and Bill. Contact information's here. Make sure you visit our website. That's psaeducation.com to make sure you're leveraging all that PSA has to offer. On our education page, you can access our future webinar events, this recording, educational offerings, and our business solutions. Thank you again, guys. This will conclude our presentation.
Thank you, guys.
I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.